Welcome back to Faith Roots on YouTube. Lovely to have you with us for another of these video shorts, and we're continuing to look at the topic "You shall know the truth," and that topic we're particularly looking at this whole question of what causes and how to spot conspiracy theories. So you might call this an anatomy of a conspiracy theory. And what we've been saying throughout is that really there is kind of one conspiracy theory that you can trace its spine through history, and then you get bits sort of coming off, I guess, sort of like you would off of a spine. You get the bones and things coming off the ribs, or indeed we live in a time when we talk about viruses and viral load and viral shedding. You might say that the conspiracy is a kind of virus that spreads, and that it gets variants that mutate off, but also that image of the virus kind of shedding its load to infect others. And sometimes you pick up the full dose, and sometimes you pick up bits and pieces of it. And that's why it's important to understand that kind of anatomy of what's going on with a conspiracy theory, because whilst you might not pick up the full load of a wrong idea, you can still pick up bits of it that can distort your thinking and distort your relationships with others and affect your actions and your decision making. That's why we want to be so careful about it. Furthermore, because I am arguing that there is really one prime conspiracy theory, that shows us why we need to get back to Scripture. This is a spiritual problem. Because what I've argued, my hypothesis is that the world is divided into those who are confident that this world is ordered and structured, that it was created good, that it may be affected by the fall, and that may affect our ability to see everything clearly as we should do, and to have the confidence that everything will go consistently. But at the same time, it isn't just a whole load of chaos, that it is possible to make sense of the world around us, to understand it, and to believe our eyes and ears. That my starting point is that what I see, what I hear, what I pick up with my senses is likely to be a true and real perception of the world as it actually is. Against that is the belief that the world is chaotic and accidental and not good, evil, in fact, that matter is evil. And that in this chaos we cannot make sense of things, that we cannot believe our eyes and our ears, and therefore we need to get access to secret truth, the reality behind what we see and hear, the true reality behind the pretend reality, and that there, initiated into the secrets, we will know what is really going on. And that belief has run through history, not just in what we would call modern conspiracy theories. It's there in this thing called Gnosticism, an ancient belief that competed with early Christianity, in fact, in some places. It's there even in some of the philosophers that Kant will talk about, what we observe, but also the kind of the reality, the reason behind it, and whether you could get through to that or not. And in fact, that's there was the course of Romanticism, the idea that we couldn't just be through empirical means be able to observe and understand what was going on around us. So we needed to find ways to get to the real truth, the real world, through art and music, through creativity, through experience, and through a shed load of drugs as well. So if this is a spiritual issue, we need spiritual answers, and that's why I keep taking us back to the Bible, to God's Word, because I want to suggest that we need to be healthy believers who are rooted in the truth. If our lives are shaped or even just infected by lies, it will destabilize our relationships with each other, our relationships within the church, and even our relationship with God. And that's why we need to get back to the truth. And so today I want to take us back to one of those Bible readings we had in the first video. And here it should be coming up now. There you go. This is from John 8, verse 42 to 44. Jesus said to them, to the people listening in, to the Jewish leaders, the Pharisees, the priests, and the scribes, "If God were your Father, you would love me. For I came from God, and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot bear to hear my word. You are of the father of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and has nothing to do with the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies." So just read that through again for yourself, just to get that fixed in your heads, what is being said there. And particularly those words, "You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and has nothing to do with the truth." Think about those words. A murderer and nothing to do with the truth. So this is part of a longer conversation between Jesus and the religious leaders. And the big question is, can they really trust Jesus? Here he is, and they say, you don't have witnesses to back up your claims about who you are. Can we really trust you without you supplying the evidence to back up your claims? We believe that you are a liar, that you are a blasphemer, that you are a false prophet. And we're going to put the accusation in, and then it is up to you to disprove it. By the way, that is the classic tactic of bullies, abusers, of slanderers, and yes, of the conspiracy theorists. They make their allegations and then they say, now it's up to you. Can you disprove it? And of course it becomes impossible, doesn't it? Because every time you provide evidence, they decide that it isn't acceptable, that it isn't satisfactory. And so you just get into this game with them of being asked to disprove something. And the goalpost shifting. I actually remember someone writing to me accusing our church of a false teaching, demanding that we admitted that we were false teachers, didn't even want us to provide evidence to disprove it, just wanted us to admit that we were the false teachers, started asking us questions to prove it. And what I began to realize was that they were wanting to catch me saying something that would prove that I believed this false teaching. But I didn't even know what the false teaching was that we as elders in the church were being accused of propagating. It was just absolutely bizarre. Now, you realize at that point that you're not dealing with people that are operating at full capacity in terms of their cognitive abilities. So they come to Jesus and like, we can't trust you. Can you prove it? And Jesus keeps coming back to his relationship to the Father. Jesus's point, quite often through John's Gospel, is that here are people who claim to be within the covenant and therefore they should know the Father. And knowing the Father, they should instinctively recognize the Son, who will give them a fuller revelation of the Father, but they should be able to see who he is. They should be able to see the family likeness. And if they can't see the family likeness in Jesus, it's not because it's missing, it's because they do not know the Father. All they have is their religiosity, their legalism, their rules, their ceremonies, their own philosophical arguments, but they do not know the Father, and therefore they do not know the Son. If they'd known who God was, they would have recognized immediately Emmanuel, God with us. And if they knew the Son, they would start to get to know the Father better as well. And that's the context in which Jesus tells them, this is who your real Father is. A little intermediate step, as well as wanting to claim that God is their Father, even though they do not really know God, they also plead their physical human ancestry. We're descendants of Abraham. Abraham is our father. Jesus responds, there's no evidence of that. Abraham was faithful to God's covenant. Abraham knew the Father and therefore showed the image of God by his faith in God. God's righteousness had been accredited to him by faith. But there's nothing of that with these guys. Instead, Jesus makes those two accusations that you are like the devil. The devil is your father. That's the family likeness you're showing. And you want to do, and you do the things that he does. He is a murderer and a liar. He was a murderer from the beginning and has nothing to do with the truth. He is a liar and the father of lies. Well, we have already seen what it means to say that Satan is the father of lies, because the original conspiracy theory, the original lie about God, to stop people trusting him, is there right back in Genesis 3. And what you begin to see is that people have a loose attachment to truth because they're getting caught up in this web of deceit that has its roots in the devil's aims to take us away from faith in the living God. But I also wanted to highlight that other little phrase, other description of sin, not just that he is a liar, but he is a murderer. Falsehood kills. It did it quite literally on Capitol Hill the other week, when conspiracy theories led to a group of people trying to disrupt the result of the US presidential election. And so they attacked the Capitol, the building where Congress meets in the States. And there was violence. And there were injuries and casualties, and 5 people died. A lie killed. There is a close relationship between lying and murder. And we see that most obviously because when somebody is denied the truth, it leads them into dangerous situations where there is a risk of death. Either because they go somewhere which is unsafe for them, or they're encouraged to act violently towards others, to hate them, and to go and to act violently, assaulting, because they think they are defending and protecting themselves. But the other way in which we see lies as related to murder is this: when I lie, I break the other commandments. A lie is unfaithful because it stops us from trusting and being loyal to the one who deserves our trust and loyalty. A lie is theft because it robs people of the truth. And a lie is murder, not only because it risks injury and death, it creates dangerous situations, but because a lie is about assassinating somebody's character. It's about destroying somebody. And so, lies and murder are closely connected. That's one of the reasons why we say that to break one of the commandments is to break all of them, not just because you have to keep all of them perfectly. So to break one, you might as well have broken them all. But because they interconnect like that, they give you different perspectives on what it means to fail to love God with your whole heart and to love your neighbour as yourself. The original lie in the garden was a murderous lie. It was an attempt by Satan to assassinate God, to dethrone him, to destroy him, to replace him. And it was an act of murder by bringing death into the world against Adam and Eve. Well, I want to wrap up there for the time being. We are going to come back. We're going to look at some more Bible passages to get the biblical basis for what we're talking about. And then we will talk some more about how to conspiracy theory proof our minds and our hearts as we bring this little series to an end. But thank you for joining with us again. We'll see you soon.